Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Wayfind Marketing Live. Today is episode number 5, and we're glad that you are joining us. My name is Steve Phipps, and I am the founder and the president of Wayfind Marketing. And if you've joined us before, either on the live stream, or maybe you've watched one of our earlier episodes on YouTube, or maybe even listened to our podcast, we're glad you're here. And the whole reason I started this podcast live stream was to do two things, and that's to both encourage and equip business owners, business leaders, and nonprofit leaders. And so the way that we're doing this is on Tuesdays, every Tuesday at noon Central Time. We are focused on what I'm calling navigating business. So much is changing quickly right now. Business owners, leaders, nonprofit leaders, we're having to figure things out that we've never had to figure out before. We're having to do things in new ways. And so what's happening is on Tuesdays, we're inviting in some different guests from different areas of business. And today, Don Farrell, who's the Chief Cultivating Officer of Fresh Revenues, will be joining us. And today we're going to talk about how to navigate business in the middle of constant change. We're going to talk a little bit about customer service and messaging, accounts receivable, sales. So we're going to cover a variety of different activities today. And for those that are joining us live, I want to invite you to go ahead and if you have questions, please ask those questions in the comments. So if you're joining us on Facebook or on YouTube, you can do that there in the comment stream, and we will look at those and make sure to answer those while we're here live. And I want to invite you just to follow along with us. Please, if you're on YouTube, subscribe. We're going to be doing this for a long time. So every Tuesday, we're talking about business topics. On Fridays at noon, we're talking about marketing, specifically things that you as a business owner, a leader, a nonprofit leader can do to market your business, especially in the middle of everything that's going on. And so one of the things, so again, I may have mentioned this already, but the two things that I really want to do with this are to encourage and equip. And so something that I want to share just before we have Don on here in just a couple of minutes, something that I want to share that I'm learning, because we're all in this, we're all trying to figure things out. So I posted something on LinkedIn that got a good response. And so you may have seen this, but 4 things that I'm learning in navigating through all of this. Number 1 is I'm not in this alone. And I've heard that from brands that don't know me, from Adam, but I've also heard that from peers and friends who I value and trust. And so it's important to know that we're not alone in this and to have people to reach out to. Number 2 is sort of following up on that. Man, how important it is to get encouragement from other people. And so I would encourage you, reach out to other people around you. Make sure to just send a quick note to a client or someone that you've worked with in the past, just to check in on them, see how they're doing. The third thing is that, you know what I'm realizing is that it's important to go back to the fundamentals. And that's one of the things that I know Don's going to talk about today. There are some things that are just tried and true, fundamental principles. There's bedrock things that we've learned about a long time ago, and sometimes it's easy to get away from. So going back to those things is absolutely essential in a time like now. And the last thing is, now's a great time to try something new. And this live stream is a perfect example of that. When all of this started happening, I sat down with my team and just said, what can we do? How do we take what we know in a way to try to do something to give back, to help people? And so that's sort of what led to us launching this. And it's a lot of work. We're figuring things out. We're making mistakes. But maybe there's something new that you can try. There's a friend of mine who's in my Vistage group, and he's launched a podcast this week. So Robbie, if you're watching this, man, great job on that. So anyway, that's just some thoughts there on to encourage. Now we're going to jump into the equipping part of this here in just a minute. So I'm going to quit babbling because Don's really, Don's the one that we want to hear from today. So Don Farrell, just to give you a little bit of background, Don has led several companies, all focused primarily on serving hospitality industry. Not exclusively, but that's been a big part of their focus. And they've worked with small hotels and restaurants and organizations like that, all the way up to Fortune 500 companies. And Don's one of those guys. He is as comfortable and at ease with, a CEO's making $8 million a year, down to working with the frontline staff at a hotel or a restaurant who might be making $8 an hour. And so he's his experience has gone from working in the kitchen scrubbing pots all the way up to interacting with C-level executives. And so we're going to talk today about some things that you can do in terms of your messaging, things that you can do from a sales perspective, customer service, thinking through business fundamentals. And anyway, I'm going to shut up. I'm going to go ahead and invite Don in, and so we can go ahead and jump in. Hey, Don.
Hello, Steve.
How are you this afternoon?
I am doing grand, and I'm doing better now that I'm talking to you.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, Don, man, I'm glad to have you on. You just heard the intro. And one thing I didn't mention is Don and I met last year. He and I are both part of a business peer group called Vistage. John Salika, who's on here last Tuesday, is the one who leads that group or chairs that group. And so Don came to the group last summer, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And has been a great part of the group. And I've learned a lot from Don just in the short time that I've known him. And as we got this live stream up and running, I definitely wanted to get him on because he's got some great stories. As I hear him say, he's got stories for the heart and facts for the head. And he's got some great things to share. So Don, why don't you just give us a little bit of your background, and then we can dive in from there.
As you mentioned, I come from the hospitality world, which when you're 15 years old, the best opportunity is to be a pot scrubber or a dishwasher. So I started as a pot scrubber, and then I got promoted to dishwasher, Steve. That was a promotion. Worked my way through the ranks, wound up as VP of sales and marketing for different companies. And the cool thing about hospitality is everybody is looking for it. BMW is looking for it. Audi is looking for it. Guy that we're working with right now has 300 gas stations that he owns, is looking for the hospitality. How do you deliver that? So we've lived that since I was 15 years old. I'm a lot older than that now, let me tell you. And the coolest thing, Steve, about hospitality is you're really selling the most perishable of items, and that is time and space. Once they're gone forever. So as a result, Steve, whether we knew it or not, we were learning how to work under pressure, under duress. And if we didn't sell it today for tomorrow, it never happened. So as a result of having that kind of experience and depth and breadth, we're able to bring that to what you would consider non-traditional hospitality clients. And they're like, wow, man, where'd you come up with this stuff? Well, we've been doing it for a long time. So That's what's really cool about the hospitality world.
Well, and Don, to your point, my first job was working at Dunkin' Donuts in Baltimore I think my job title was porter, which just meant I was the guy that went in and hosed down all the equipment after they got done making the donuts.
Okay.
And then from there, I worked for Chick-fil-A both in high school and college, and I've spent about 8 years of my career with Chick-fil-A, both doing marketing and as an owner operator. And man, I completely agree with you just in terms of hospitality and how that can carry over to so many different organizations, a lot of times where people wouldn't think about it.
Right.
Well, Don, why don't you go ahead and jump in? As you and I were talking about previously, one of the challenges that I think we're all acutely aware of right now is this pandemic has really made us aware of the flaws in our business.
Right.
So what are you seeing? What are you sharing with folks as they sort of realize, and maybe even some of the things that you're learning just from your own business?
Right. Well, I love your encouragement, but also equip, and I'm going to stay with that theme. So here's the encouraging piece, and I'm going to have to read it because I just saw this yesterday. It was online, but I thought it was worth sharing with your audience. Are you ready?
Go for it.
Faith and fear have one thing in common besides the letter F. They both believe in a future that hasn't happened yet. For fear believes in the negative. Faith believes in a positive future. If neither has happened yet, why not choose positive? I thought that was pretty cool.
I like that. I like that. That's
afraid, and that's totally natural and that's totally understandable. But you could also say, look, I've got faith that this thing's going to turn out to be better for us. And my faith tells me that we're going to walk out of this thing better human beings, better leaders, better communicators. And it's stuff we should have been doing all along, but it's really brought it to the forefront. I saw a posting in Facebook the other day with I thought was ingenious. A friend of mine posted all the things that are happening in today's pandemic, and he had a super long list, Steve. And the reason he posted it was a year from now, he wants to be reminded not to forget. And 2 years from now, and 3 years from now, how cool is that? You know?
Well, one of the girls on my team who's out in California, she was telling me that she's working on a COVID time capsule, and which I think is a great idea, because if you look back at previous big things, like 9/11, these unexpected events that significantly shift, it's easy to forget.
You bet. Okay. In my own case, I look at now the flaws that are coming to the surface. And our whole thing is we are soup to nuts in training. We deliver the training results, and you've got assessment, you've got development, you've got all this stuff going on. And one of those reinforcement pieces, because Steve, most training fails for two reasons. Number one, it's not being reinforced with processes and accountabilities and coached and all that stuff. And the other is we don't get to the hearts of those frontline folks who in some cases are making $8, $10, $12 an hour, right?
Right.
So, in the process of communicating what we do for a living, I've never spent enough time on the online learning piece. And we've got quite a magnificent library of content already that we can customize for anybody. Well, my bad, Steve. I should have been promoting that, because today I might be more successful as a result of it. So there's just a personal admittment to the fact that we've all got some weaknesses, and this pandemic has brought it to bear. I've got a quote here I want to read you, and it says, "The elevator to success is out of order. You'll have to use the stairs one step at a time." And if we're honest with ourselves as operators and as communicators and as leaders, the last 10 years have been an elevator ride. I've gotten with potential clients and I said, look, I know for a fact that we can make you $2 million more on your $12 million you're making now. So pretty significant. And I'll even guarantee it and have those people say to me, Don, we're having banner years. We're having record years. We're going to be fine. Or right. Even worse, in some cases, Steve, people have said, why would I want to work any harder, Don Farrell? Because I'm already maximizing on my bonus. How sad is that? So yeah, but they're thinking a different tune today.
Well, and so I think this whole idea of, it's really when we're under pressure that we start to see the cracks. Yeah. I've always heard it said that, more with greater sales, there's a lot of forgiveness. Well, right now, everybody's feeling constriction. Well, I would say the vast majority of people are feeling a reduction or constriction of business. So people are going to feel those flaws, those cracks in different parts of their business. And so I'd love to hear from you in terms of, what does this look like in terms of communication? Maybe you've got a great example with AR that I know you're planning to share, and then even sales. That's something a lot of people right now are questioning. How do I approach sales? So sort of that communication, customer service piece, the AR, and then sales.
Cool. Thank you, Steve. You used a word earlier, fundamentals. That's one of my favorite words. So I've been blessed to be able to make presentations, speeches, deliveries, training events going back to 1986, audiences from 10 to 10,000. And inevitably, especially at the larger events, someone will run into me and they see that I'm wearing the lavalier, so they know I'm the speaker. They don't know me otherwise. And they're like, before you get on, can you tell us what the newest and greatest and latest thing is? And my answer is the same, and it's absolutely the truth in my world, in my opinion, and that is You're not going to like my answer. It's not very sexy. Well, what is it? Do the fundamentals. Because I promise you, most people, Steve, drift away from those fundamentals. And they're always looking for the newest, greatest, easiest thing to do. There's an old book that's been out there a long time. Have you heard of Whack on the Side of the Head, Steve?
No, that's a new one for me.
So it's an old book, but it still has, I mean, I visit it from time to time so I don't forget. But Roger Van Eck, Eoech, is the author. Okay. And he has like 10 different stories and lessons to be learned in the book. And one of them is, as children, as kindergartners, we are so creative. The example he uses is a teacher takes a blob on a blackboard or a whiteboard and asks the kids, what is this? And the kids are like, that's what a bird sees when it sees a lake. And they have all these multitude of answers, right? Now they ask the kids to go on the side of the room and they bring in the parents and they're sitting down at their child's seat and they ask the parents, what is this blob on the board? And typically as adults, we're looking around going, I don't want to say something stupid. I look like an idiot. So finally somebody chirps up and says, it's a blob on the board. And the adults are like, oh, great answer, great answer.
Yeah.
His point is, we've beaten the creativity out of ourselves. We're looking for the easiest, fastest solution. And that's not the best solution, Steve. Okay. So fundamentals. We tend to focus on the newest, greatest, latest. Let's not do that. Stay with the fundamentals. Now, I'm going to redefine the fundamentals in just a bit, because what somebody else's fundamentals are and what we recommend are entirely different, which is why they pay us to be very tactical with them. And it all starts with a core. And you've heard me say this, Steve, but for your audience, I don't know if they have. And that is, when I ask people, is satisfying your clientele, is satisfying your associates that work for you, is that the mission? Is that the goal every single day, week, month, year? And they say, it sure is. And I beg to differ, because if you really look up the definition of satisfaction, it's giving people what they expect. And if you as a leader have been doing that to date, my suggestion is your fundamentals need to change, and that is to deliver more than people expect. And then, and only then, do you develop a true loyalty, which is the key word. You don't want satisfaction, you want loyalty. And a lot of good things happen when your consumers are loyal to you. And how can you possibly have a business or run an organization of any kind, including not-for-profit, if your associates are not loyal to you? So you've got leaders, you've got two things to do, and that is to deliver more than your consumer expects and to deliver more than your people expect. And that's why they pay you the big dust.
So, Don, one of the things I want to make a comment, and I want to, before I make my comment about that specifically, for our viewers, our listeners, here in just a little bit, I'm going to share Don's contact information, and we're going to, as we're going through this, just for the sake of time, we're not going to have as much time to dive into the detail of some of these topics as I know we would love to do. We want to be considerate of everybody's time, and so we're going to share Don's contact information. So if there's something that he says that pops up that really creates some curiosity or something that you want to talk about more, then we're going to give you his contact information. You can get in touch and you can explore any of these topics in more detail. So going back to the customer service and satisfaction's not enough. When I was at Chick-fil-A, there was an initiative called Second Mile Service. And we talked about first mile. The idea of going the first mile is what people expect. That doesn't create loyalty. That's what people, when they come into your restaurant, or whatever the basic expectations are when they come into your business, you're not winning awards because you can check off the basic expectations. Now, depending on your competitors, maybe that's enough to create a distinction, but it doesn't create loyalty. And we always talked about creating these experiences, these second mile experiences, and little things that really, and that's where the whole my pleasure response came from, was to create those little things. So it doesn't have to be dramatic, expensive changes. It can be small little nuances that really have a significant impact in terms of how people think, feel, and what they believe about your business and ultimately your brand.
Yes. And in the process of building that loyalty, if you're asking yourself, okay, what can I possibly do that is more than people expect? I find, again, C-suite people feel like that's their total responsibility, and it's not. Their responsibility is to get everybody in the organization to be contributing towards that.
Yeah.
Even the pot scrubber in the kitchen has ideas about what people like and don't like about the food because he throws it away, right?
Yep.
But you won't ask that person these kinds of questions, and we need to. Not only will it give you a plethora of ideas to do tactically to do more than you're doing for your consumers today, but it's also going to build the right culture that says, my people are that important. They're the ones delivering it. They're the ones that have the right answers. It's my job to make sure it happens. So
two key takeaways that I'm hearing as it relates to creating great customer client experiences, which right now is going to be more important than ever, because as things become more competitive in certain spaces, if all things are equal and they're getting a better experience somewhere else, they're going to go somewhere else.
Right.
So number one is think about, what does it mean to create loyalty? And ultimately, I think that comes back to define the basic expectations of what your customers expect coming in the door.
Correct.
Maybe not literally coming in the door, but what they expect, and then define what you can do to build on top of that. And then the second thing that I hear you saying is, if you have a team, talk to your team, ask everybody for ideas, because it's not just as you said, it's not just the people sitting in the C-suite. A lot of times it's going to be the frontline folks that are interacting with customers that really are going to have some pretty significant ideas.
Yeah, I'd like to tell you I'm a genius, Steve, and I can come up with all these new ideas, but the truth is I listen to their frontline folks. That's where I get most of my input from.
Absolutely. When I had my Chick-fil-A, I had great ideas that came from the 15-year-old who was working on the front line with our customers.
Yep.
So to transition this, so we talked about customer experience, creating loyalty. Let's shift for just a moment. I know one of the things that a lot of people are thinking about right now. Okay, if I might have a client who owes me some money, but I don't, how do I have that conversation without seeming like a jerk, but I still have bills? And you've got a great example of this. So why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of how you're approaching that in a way that's tactful yet still honest?
So the reality is, we know, the audience knows, is many of our clients have shut down. So they don't have revenue coming in. And here you are trying to get paid. It's a tough situation. So what we've done and what we recommend others do, in fact, Emily Adams in my company has done this and done this very well, is to have an honest discussion with our clients that owe us money from the past. And to first and foremost, have empathy for their situation and truly care about them and communicate that care. But before we leave the end of this phone call with them or the video call, we're trying to come up with some sort of a schedule as when they think they can pay us back. Now, our assumption that's turning out to be true is, out of 100% of the people we're calling, 50% are sending us money sooner than they probably would have, because we've had that discussion.
Sure.
And that's a home run. So our recommendation is, have that honest discussion with your client, but certainly have empathy before you dig into, hey, you owe me X amount of dollars, and be understanding with their payback schedule. If it takes 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is, I think you ought to live with that. It's better than the nothing you're getting.
Yeah, and I think the thing that people appreciate about that is business owners want to be responsible, and there is sort of a that can be an awkward conversation. So I think when that's handled tactfully, especially from being initiated by the person who's owed the money, I think a lot of times that just sort of relieves that pressure from the business owner thinking, well, wow, man, I know I owe them money, and do I bring it up? Do they bring it up? So I think I like that approach. Well, now, so we've gone through customer experience. We've talked a little bit about AR, and I know another area where you do a lot of training is sales training and teaching people what to say or what to ask, or in a lot of cases, what not to say and what not to ask. And of course, a lot of people right now have that question: how do I sell? Like, I want to be in front of people. I still want to continue trying to either to survive in order to do that, I'm looking for ways that I can bring in new customers, or maybe it's continuing to serve my existing clients. So how are you encouraging people to have those conversations right now when it comes to sales?
Great question. So if you're someone who feels like and believes in your product or service can help someone else, don't be bashful about trying to sell. Your mission is to help your clients. And if you sell something in the process, that's beautiful. Okay. So have that kind of focus. Things not to do. And I wish I could take credit for coining this. I can't. I saw a webinar being advertised the other day, and I haven't had a chance to see the recording yet, but I want to. And she said, ditch the pitch. It can't be about the pitch. It's got to be about how can we serve you? How can we help you? Open-ended questions, Steve. Open-ended. Ask the questions. Do a lot of listening. If we're not listening more than we're talking, we're probably not selling the right way. Okay. And the last thing, because I know we're short on time, a couple things, is always, always, always the value proposition before your price. Hey, how much is so-and-so? Well, before I go into that, let me ask you a couple of questions regarding your needs. Now that you've honed that down, you can focus on a customized approach to communicating your value proposition. Here's what we can do for you. And then, and only then, do you ask for the sale in terms of the price, and then asking for the order. Believe it or not, we listen to thousands and thousands and thousands of sales calls, live, real life sales calls. And in most cases, you're going to find this hard to believe, the salesperson doesn't ask for the order. Ask for the order, Steve. Be proud. Okay.
You know, that in one of the things that we talk to our clients about in marketing, and especially on a website, is be clear about what the next step is. And the last point that you made about make the ask. And of course, there's a tactful way to do that.
Right.
It's not the stereotypical salesperson that I think a lot of people have in mind, especially for a lot of business owners who they part of being the owner means they've got to go sell their service or product, but maybe that's just not how they're naturally wired. And so it feels awkward and I don't want to, seem pushy. And yet at the same time, there needs to be that directness. So I think that's a great point. So do you have any kind of just quick tips, or are there any questions that you have found? Because to your point, in having a conversation, we want to make sure that we understand what our customers and our clients need. And that was something we talked about on one of our previous episodes, last Friday's episode 4, was you've got to understand your customers now. What is it that they need? Are there any questions that you think would be helpful for our listeners and viewers that they could use with their customers or their prospects?
Let's talk about existing clientele.
Okay.
Focusing initially on, hey, Mr. Client, Ms. Client, we've enjoyed success for the last couple of years and last couple of months, whatever the situation is, and we've been able to do this and this and this. Could we take a couple of minutes and you tell me what your pain points are? Tell me where you have challenges this second in time, this moment in time. Where do you have challenges? And the reason I'm asking is there's a possibility we could help you, and if we can't help you, then maybe we know someone that can. So where are your pain points? And that's an open-ended question, Steve. And that's a beautiful one to ask potential clients and existing clients. I'd start with my existing because you have a relationship, right? So find out what those points are. And if all you do is recommend that person to someone else, they'll never forget it, Steve. You cared about them. Okay. You did more, you communicated more.
Absolutely. And so a couple things that stand out to me that I want to point out, and then we'll start to wrap up. Number one, it's easy sometimes to take the perspective that I'm selling something, and as soon as that's our mindset, we're gonna hit the ditch on one side of the road or the other. Whereas if I view what I do, you view what you do, if our listeners and viewers view what they do as a way to help someone, then when you have that conversation and you're doing it from that perspective of finding out what's bothering you. What is your pain point right now? How can I help you? And that might be that the way that I help you right now might not have anything to do with my service. It might not have anything to do with a proposal that I could give you. It might have everything to do with, oh, hey, you know what? Don could probably help you. Or, this person over here could probably help you. And so again, what we're doing is we're positioning ourselves to be that guide. And I think it's also important to note that a lot of what we're doing right now may not yield fruit right now.
Correct.
It's something that may yield fruit 6 months from now, 12 months from now. And even if it never yields more business for us, it's the right thing to do.
Perfect. Do the right thing for the right reason, Steve. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
On something you said about the mind shift of the definition salesperson. If you say salesperson to most people, they have a negative connotation. They're thinking the high pressure, all they're worried about is my American Express kind of experience. And I hate to say it, but that is the majority of the selling experiences out there. So as a result, when I'm sitting down with owners and operators of businesses, whether they're 10 people or 10,000 or 100,000, is I'll ask them, how many salespeople do you have? Well, we've got a staff of 3 or 2 or 1 or none. And that is not the truth. The truth ought to be for every single associate in your company, they are selling. They have a next door neighbor, they have a cousin, they have a friend that they can communicate with. What we've got to do is redefine how to sell. If you truly care about someone, you're going to ask those questions. You're going to start servicing before you sell. You're going to offer advice. You're going to be on their side. Okay, you get it. And then you're going to go into what you can offer. And you're going to find you're having a discussion. It's not a sales pitch. It's a discussion about their needs and what you can do to satisfy their needs, and more than satisfy, create loyalty. Okay.
Absolutely. And I think it comes back to, as we were talking about a few minutes ago, that willingness to step back and say, you know what, I'm not the best person who can help you. And so I know sometimes for me, that might be that someone comes to me and they're asking questions about a particular marketing service, and maybe they're in an industry that we just don't serve. And someone else, maybe one of my competitors, is better equipped, and being able to say, you know what, I'm not the right person, but I'm more than happy to try to connect you with someone who's a better fit.
Good example.
Don, this has been great. I suspect that we could continue the course of this conversation for probably a couple of hours. I don't know that our viewers and listeners have that much time right now. So what I want to do is I'm going to share Don's contact information. And Don, why don't you go ahead and just kind of tell a little bit about, give an invitation for folks to follow up with you. And you and I talked about that earlier.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. So I would love it, love it, love it if your listeners would call me up, send me an email, whatever they're comfortable in doing, with specific situations that they face. And I would love to give them all the free advice I possibly can. We have no secrets over here, Steve. We're willing to share anything and everything. We've always been like that, but it's especially important now. So I hope people do contact me. Something as simple as, I just don't feel like I'm a salesperson. I don't have, yes, you can. Yes, you need to. And you're probably a lot better than you think you are,
Well, and so for anyone that might be listening to this on the podcast, you can get in touch with Don. His email address is don@freshrevenues.com. And that revenues is plural, REVENUES. His website, freshrevenues.com. And he's been gracious enough to provide us with his cell phone number as well. So 731-514-1589. And I want to use something that you mentioned a moment ago to springboard into our upcoming episode on Friday. And that's, how do you create a message that cuts through a lot of the noise and the clutter, and that compels people to respond? And as you said just a few minutes ago, it's important to clearly communicate your value proposition. What is it that your business, your brand, your nonprofit, what is it that you provide that's of value? How can that help your existing customers, your future customers. How does what you do help them? And again, that's incredibly important, especially right now because budgets are tighter. I think people are also feeling a little bit skittish and very careful about where they do invest their money. So I want to encourage anybody to join us Friday at noon, all the same channels. When we're going to go into very specific tactics about how to do that. Also, if you have any ideas, if there's something you'd like to for us to talk about on this show in a future episode, if you have specific questions about anything that we've talked about today, you can get in touch with me as well, Steve at wayfindmarketing.com. You can reach us through our website as well, wayfindmarketing.com. And so just a couple of quick things. I would encourage you take a few minutes and write down 3 things that you can do in response to what you've heard today. Maybe it has to do with your customer experience, defining the basics, defining how you can create these great shareable experiences. Maybe it's how to have that AR conversation with some of your clients. Maybe it's thinking about how do you have some of those sales conversations and thinking through some of the questions that you could ask. So just jot down 3 things. We want this to be tactical. And again, you know how to get in touch with us. So we would love if you have any follow-up questions or comments. And so just a couple of things just to wrap up. Number 1, please follow us, subscribe to us on YouTube. You can either just go to YouTube and just type in Wayfind Marketing. It'll pull us up and subscribe there. You can also go to wayfindmarketing.com/live. And you can, there's a link to both our Facebook and our YouTube channels there. We'd love for you to follow along, get notices when things are coming along. And we're offering a free website review as well. So there's a pop-up that you'll see on my website if that's of interest. So Don, thanks again. We really appreciate you being here today. You've got great information to share, and I always learn something whenever we have a conversation. So thanks for everybody who's joined us today. We are signing off. Have a great afternoon and look forward to seeing y'all again on Friday. Thanks, Don.